The ball dropped, and the hockey world collectively lost its mind. The Toronto Maple Leafs, who had just missed the playoffs for the first time in a decade, somehow won the 2026 NHL Draft Lottery with an 8.5% chance. The fifth best odds in the room. The prize? Gavin McKenna, the most coveted draft prospect in years. And in one Tuesday night in Secaucus, the entire trajectory of one of hockey's most scrutinized franchises changed overnight. But to understand why this matters, you have to understand exactly what just ended in Toronto. Go back to 2016. 3 drafts in a row delivered what looked like 3 franchise-altering players. Nylander in 2014, Marner in 2015, Matthews in 2016. Opening night, October 12, 2016, Austin Matthews scored 4 goals in his NHL debut. The first player in the modern era to do it. Marner finished his rookie year with 61 points and 42 assists, breaking a franchise record. Nylander matched him with 61 points of his own. 3 rookies, producing like top-line players, all at the same time. For a city that had waited years for something to believe in, this felt like the beginning of something special. But every single spring, without fail, the playoffs told a different story. 2017, lost in 6 to Washington. 2018, Game 7 loss to Boston. 2019, blew the lead 3 times. Game 7 loss to Boston again. 2020, eliminated by Columbus in the bubble. 2021, up 3-1 on Montreal, a team that barely made the playoffs. Lost 3 in a row, eliminated in Game 7. The definition of insanity. And through all of it, the regular season kept delivering. In 2019, Mitch Marner signed a 6-year deal worth $10.9 million per season, making him one of the highest-paid players in the league. Every playoff exit after that had his face on it. 2022, Matthews hit 60 goals and won the Rocket Richard, the most explosive offense in the league. Lost to Tampa in 7. 2023, finally won a playoff round, first since 2004. Lost to Florida in round 2. Kyle Dubas fired. 2024, Matthews scored 69 goals, the highest total in nearly 30 years. Lost to Boston in overtime in Game 7. Again. 2025, blew a 2-0 series lead to Florida. Game 7 on home ice. Completely lifeless. Jerseys thrown on the ice. 9 years. The same core, the same result. That summer, Mitch Marner was signed and traded to Vegas on an 8-year, $96 million deal. 741 points in 657 games with Toronto. Gone. And without Marner, without the playoff pressure driving any urgency, the 2025-26 Maple Leafs became one of the worst teams in hockey, missing the playoffs for the first time in 10 years. And then 2 days before the draft lottery, the Leafs made it even more complicated. Matt Sundin was named Senior Executive Advisor of Hockey Operations, a franchise legend, beloved captain for 10 years, no front office experience. John Chayka was named General Manager. At 36, one of the youngest GMs in league history, but his last NHL stint ended in controversy. In July 2020, Chayka resigned from the Arizona Coyotes with 3 years left on his contract, 1 day before the playoffs were set to begin. Commissioner Gary Bettman suspended him through December 31st, 2021, for conduct detrimental to the league. And under his watch in Arizona, the Coyotes had conducted illegal pre-draft testing on more than 20 prospects, costing the franchise their 2020 second-round pick and their 2021 first-round pick. The press conference introducing Chayka and Sundin was described by reporters as one of the most uncomfortable in franchise history. A journalist stood up and told Keith Pelley, the Leafs CEO, that of 20 hockey people contacted, 19 used words like con artist, liar, and salesman to describe the hire. Pelley's response? I must have talked to different people. On top of all of that, reports surfaced the morning of the lottery that Austin Matthews wanted to see meaningful roster improvements before committing his future to Toronto. This was the state of the franchise when the balls were drawn. Vancouver had the best odds going into the final ball. Then the number came up. 12. Toronto. A franchise that had missed the playoffs twice in the past 10 years had won the draft lottery both times. Matt Sundin was grinning ear to ear in the reaction shot. The hockey world had questions. Chayka said it perfectly afterward. You need some luck, and we got it tonight. Long road ahead, lots of work to do, but when you get a first overall pick, it is a monumental opportunity. So now the question everyone is asking, McKenna or Stenberg? And look, I am going to give you my honest take on this because I think it matters. Gavin McKenna, Whitehorse, Yukon, at Penn State this season, tied for 5th in NCAA scoring with 51 points in 35 games. Named Big Ten Freshman of the Year. Elite playmaking vision, hockey IQ that operates at a level most players never reach. A Kucherov-level ceiling on a player who could slot directly onto Austin Matthews' wing. And here's the thing people are not talking about enough. McKenna's game is built on give-and-go hockey. Quick passes, reading the play before it develops, finding teammates in seams and getting the puck back. That is Austin Matthews' entire game. Matthews has always thrived with a winger who can move the puck fast, find him in tight spaces, and keep plays alive in the offensive zone. That is exactly what Marner did for him for 9 years. McKenna does that, naturally, without even thinking about it. The fit is genuinely one of the most exciting things about this pick, because you are not just adding a good player, you are adding the exact type of player that makes Austin Matthews better. Now, I do also want to address the elephant in the room. Earlier this year, McKenna was involved in an altercation in downtown State College after a Penn State game. He was initially charged with felony aggravated assault. The felony charge was dropped. The district attorney reviewed the video and said it did not support the felony threshold. He still faces a misdemeanor charge. Look, I am not here to pretend that never happened. It did, and any team drafting him has to account for it. But here's the other side of that. Toronto is one of the most media-intense markets in professional sports. Every move gets scrutinized. Every word gets replayed. You need a player who can handle that. And from everything scouts and journalists who have covered McKenna closely have said, this is a kid who is mature beyond his age, composed in interviews, thoughtful in the way he carries himself publicly. He has shown throughout his junior career that he does not get rattled. The Toronto market will test that, but I do not think it breaks him. And personally, I think they take McKenna. That is my read. Then there is Ivar Stenberg, Swedish winger, Frölunda HC, 33 points in 43 SHL games this season, the most by an 18-year-old in that league since Daniel and Henrik Sedin in 1998-99. More defensively mature, more structured, more NHL ready right now. Some scouts believe his SHL production at that age is actually more predictive than McKenna's combined WHL and NCAA numbers. It is a real debate, and it is not going away between now and June 26th in Buffalo. But here is the bigger picture. One lottery win does not fix a broken organization. The Maple Leafs spent a decade with elite talent, historic regular seasons, and endless belief that this time would be different. It never was. And the same front office instability, the same organizational questions, the same pressure that crushed every team this city put together, that does not disappear because the ping pong balls fell the right way. What the Leafs have now is the chance to do something they have not done in a very long time. Build right. Build patient. Build around a generational talent the right way. Whether that is McKenna or Stenberg, the player will be there. So let's actually paint the picture. Because this is what Toronto looks like if they get this right. Auston Matthews is 28 years old, still in his prime, still one of the most dangerous goal scorers the sport has ever seen. He missed significant time this season with a serious knee injury and had the least productive year of his career. But that is not a talent problem, that is a health problem. And he has never had a true elite playmaking winger since Marner left. You put McKenna on his wing, a player whose entire game is built around finding elite scorers in space and making them more dangerous. And you have something this franchise has never had before. A legitimate 1-2 combination that opposing teams have no answer for. Nylander is still there, 30 years old, led the team with 79 points this season, even on a team that missed the playoffs. One of the most underrated players in the NHL. Morgan Rielly, still on the blue line, a veteran presence on a contract through 2030. And cap space, projected at roughly $22 million heading into the offseason. Enough to add real pieces. Enough to actually build around what the lottery just handed them. The window with Matthews is not closing, but it is not getting bigger either. He is 28. He signed a long-term extension, but the clock is running, and he has already made it clear he wants to see meaningful moves before he commits his future here. Toronto does not need to rebuild. They need to reload. Draft McKenna or Stenberg. Sign or trade for a true number one defenseman. Fix the goaltending properly. And give Matthews one more real shot at ending a drought that has lasted since 1967. That is the version of Toronto that makes every other team in the Eastern Conference genuinely nervous. That is what is possible. Whether this front office is capable of getting there, that is the only question left. Because Toronto has wasted generational talent before. The question is whether they learned anything from a decade of doing it. If you want more breakdowns like this, make sure you subscribe to Infinite Puck. And thank you to everyone who has already subscribed and shown support for the channel.